Meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Dibdall,
Here.
Commissioner Cronin. Here. Commissioner Wire,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there anything anyone wants to discuss or remove from the consent calendar? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no unfinished business. Under new business, public hearing on temporary alcohol license, St. Thomas School Gala, Knights of Columbus for November 2nd, 2024. And not seeing anyone here that I believe would speak to that. We will move on to number 10, approve the temporary retail alcohol license for the St. Thomas School Gala, Knights of Columbus, November 2nd, 2024. Any discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under number 11, approve the first reading of ordinance number 1671, amend appendix B, zoning section 1702. Jameson, would you like to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance is a rezoning ordinance that changes the property for a future planned quick trip from single family residential, which is R90, to highway business, and that's the appropriate zone for that use. This came through planning commission with a unanimous recommendation to approve.
Questions or comments?
You said unanimous, it was,
Yeah, right?
no, any other discussion or?
I think there's plenty of discussion, but,
Yeah,
just more facts about about the rezone. There were no comments from the public or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 1671, amend appendix B, zoning section 1702.
Second.
Hey, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for making the trip.
My pleasure. Thank you. We're looking forward to being here.
Yes, we're looking forward to having you here.
What's your construction timeline look like?
Right now, it's on the schedule for next year sometime. That's all I can tell you right now,
Fair enough.
but maybe the next meeting I might have dates for
Okay,
it. Okay?
we appreciate it.
It's relatively fast construction. It's generally 5-6 months at the longest.
Mhm.
Is it modeled after any other
If you
facility?
see any of the newer stores in Sioux Falls, it'll be just like that.
Okay,
What we call our Gen 3, it's about almost a 10,000-foot store. We have 2 lanes of side diesel on the west side, 10 gas pumps in the front, car wash in the rear.
all right,
We're very excited about
all righty, thank you.
it. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
You bet. Safe travels.
Thank you so much.
Number 12, resolution 2024-25 regarding initiated measure. Jameson, do you want to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Initiated Measure 28 is a ballot initiative that is on for this November's ballot to be voted on by the people. What it does is it would remove sales taxes on items sold for human consumption, except alcohol and prepared food. And this is something that cities all across the state are keeping a close eye on, because it's believed that it will affect our local sales tax greatly. There's been a couple different estimates that have been done for what this would mean for Madison, and at this point in time, our estimate is that it'd be $623,000 loss to the budget. So many cities are bringing resolutions very similar to this one to their elected bodies for consideration. Largely as education measures, so the public is aware that this measure is coming up on the November ballot, and also what it could mean for their local communities. So in our case, it's about $622,000, what we're currently estimating, since we would not be able to get as much sales tax from those consumables. So I think I will stand by for any questions.
And that's it on the general fund, correct?
Yeah,
Mhm.
What was that number one more time?
622,000.
And having, met with the class one mayors and that this is the conservative. It could be worse depending on how the definition of consumables is used. So, this year is looking primarily in that, at food, but if they anticipated because of the wording to go to court, and if the court were to define consumables, including more items than what's presently thought, the loss could be greater. So. Other questions or comments?
Have we looked at drafting two budgets based on this at all?
Not currently, no. I mean, we can throw it into the projection for review.
Yeah, so we'll have to have approved our budget. Well, our plan is to have approved our budget by the time this hits the November ballot. Even if that wasn't the case, if this measure were to pass in November, that still doesn't settle the final question of how it's gonna affect municipalities. There is a question of whether it will affect our local sales tax. Many of us believe that it will, but that's something that the courts would have to decide. And so that'd be a process that would take place over I assume, several months following the election, if it were to pass. Some cities are taking the conservative approach of simply budgeting in 2025 for this loss, assuming that it will be in place to be conservative. That's something that we've discussed how we handle as well. Certainly open to direction and feedback.
I would prefer we budget conservatively. I think it would be in our best interest. I'd rather tighten the belt now, in my opinion. I mean, we can always loosen it.
Yeah, one of the fortunate things is that this would go in effect July 1, so that would be half of our budget for next year. So our annual loss is projected 622,000. To adjust our budget to plan for that would be half that amount. So that gives us a year to step into it if this were something that gets passed.
Other questions or comments?
I just hope people understand what the reverse effect of this is gonna be.
Well, and just from the discussions that I've listened to, schools could be hit hard also because of state aid.
Yes, correct.
And so it isn't just the cities that are gonna be affected, it's gonna be, the entire state. And, at this point in time, there has not been any discussions that I have heard on, ways to mitigate some of the loss. So it could be, it will be more significant than just what the city loses, no question there. It's gonna affect 6 cities, schools, counties, it's gonna affect across the board. So,
Did you give a percentage? That would be,
Percentage loss?
yeah.
No,
and the general fund,
for us.
Yes, for the
So,
city.
so last year we collected 4.2 million. So you can do the math on 622,000 from that. Every city is a little bit different. So this is a number that was generated by an outside party, wasn't something that we were doing, but we've checked it to see if it makes sense, and we did feel like it made sense for our municipality. Other cities are affected variously. Some rely very heavily on sales tax and some not as much.
any other questions or comments? Is something that we really do hope that the public takes a look at, and understands and that it will make some major changes. And rather than just say, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too. Hopefully people educate themselves
Yes,
pretty well on it.
Mhm. So,
Is there any way we could put together some sort of flyer that can go out in the mailing? Is that
Sure.
legal?
So the law states that we can spend money to educate on political issues or ballot measures like this, but we can't spend money to advocate for or against
against,
it.
yeah.
So it depends what that flyer looks like. I will note that the South Dakota Municipal League, the Retailer Association, other groups who have more flexibility than we do are organizing together to put together an effort to oppose this measure. And they'll have some resources that we can use to educate.
Yeah, for this, be able to stick a flyer and then utility bills.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of ballot measures on the ballot this year. And I would expect September and October to be a busy couple of months leading up to the election, where a lot of these ballot measures are gonna be spending a lot of money to educate the public for or against all the issues.
Is that something that Savannah would be in charge of communications?
She could certainly help, and I'm sure have some great ideas for how we can engage with the public on that. I guess I'll note that Brookings is having a public, discussion, and they're inviting some of the parties in to discuss it and ask questions on. And that's in mid-September, and following that, we could see if we wanted to do, maybe an open house or, some kind of public engagement session here in Madison.
You know, and just the things that I've been hearing and that, people feel that the sales tax is gonna affect, you know, just basically the cities. But this here affects the state of South Dakota. You know, and the state of South Dakota, look at all the entities and that they have to fund. Including the counties, including the schools, including, you know, their own highway patrol and officials and highway, you know, departments and so forth. So I mean, it's more encompassing than just having an effect on cities, and that's where I hope people really educate themselves. So,
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the questions that's really up in the air is the ballot measure is aimed at the state sales tax, so the 4.2% that's still out there, removing it from consumables. And the city portion is concerning the cities because we believe it would affect us, but like I said, that's something that the court system will need to look at. Cities are only allowed to tax that which the state taxes. So if the state's no longer allowed to tax consumables, the rationale is that the city wouldn't be able to either. There is a counter argument that a 0% tax on consumables is a tax. I wouldn't agree with that. I feel like if I made 0% payment to my mortgage, they wouldn't view that as a mortgage payment. So I think there's arguments both sides, but again, we'd have to wait for a court system to decide how this affects cities that would run it.
a lot of questions, not a lot of answers. No. Other questions or comments, concerns? Okay. If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-25 regarding initiated measure 28.
Second.
Yep. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution 2024-26, authorization of incidental disbursement accounts. And again, Jameson or Amy, I'll ask one of you to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once the city commission moved to having meetings twice a month as opposed to weekly, we had passed this resolution that allows the finance office authority to make certain operational expenses, which we then bring to you for ratification, which is approved on the consent calendar. As we've done this for 2.5 years, it's worked quite well. But we wanted to go back and check some of these amounts that we have the authority to pay up to see if any changes need to be made. And so the changes from that original resolution are the utility and bulk power purchases increased from $450 per utility and $600 in total to $650 per utility and $725 in total. And that's thousands, so 725,000. Supplies and materials went from 15,000 to 20,000. And then service contracts and agreements went from 7,500 per account, 20,000 total, to 8,000 per account, 25,000 total. So those are the changes we made just to be keeping up with costs that we're seeing and allows our finance staff to continue making those payments on a timely manner.
Questions or comments? Hey, if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-26, authorization of incidental disbursement account.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution 2024-27, authorizing payment of contractors. And again, I'll ask Jameson to address this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a number of SRF projects that are ongoing and they're making great progress. And those contractors submit payments to us and we process, we send it to First District and to the state, and there's a number of steps there. We try to pay contractors within 30 days, but until now, we've waited to get reimbursement from the state on SRF funding before we paid the contractors. Sometimes that comes in time and sometimes it takes longer. In the past, the commission has acted, I want to say 2 different occasions to give staff authority to make some of those payments in advance. That was when the state was taking particularly longer, I think sometimes 10 to 12 or more weeks to make those payments. And so here we're coming back with a more formalized resolution that establishes that the finance office and staff are able to make certain payments to contractors and other situations to keep the work going and keep the progress continuing on our projects.
You want to mention the contract, say 30 days?
Yes, that's what I was gonna mention. Thank you. So our policy still will be to try to wait for that reimbursement from SRF from the state. So we can get that reimbursement and then pay the contractors. But in situations where we haven't gotten that within 30 days, this will allow us to move forward and get those payments made. Amy, have I missed anything?
No, that's correct.
Great, thank you.
Because a lot of the contracts in that say, you know, that once something is completed, we will pay it within 30 days, and there's days when we've gone beyond that. So that's why this is making, you know, making sense to make this adjustment. Any other questions or comments?
I got a question, I guess. I
Yes,
guess it's more of a process. Do we have accountability type program for this? Is it just one? Would it just be Amy signing the checks, or is there multiple people signing checks, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. Amy, do you want to tackle it?
I always run anything like this by our finance commissioner, for approval or guidance in that manner. I think it would be a cross or a double check with Jameson and I as well. I don't like to do anything in single control.
does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 2024-27, authorizing payment of contractors.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 15, assess liquidated damages to the RD Phase 1A and 1B project. And again, Jameson or Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last meeting, we had discussions on this item, and the commission directed staff to meet with the contractor to negotiate a final price. The direction was that that the commission wanted to see something assessed to contractors, and we're willing to negotiate on that. But Ryan and I met with J&J last week and came to an agreeable amount of $125,816.66. And we came to that number because it is 1/3 of the eligible liquidated damages. I'll note that the actual costs that we have verified that we incurred due to the late completion was about $95,000, or excuse me, $101,200 in total for the 2 projects. And so this amount of roughly $126,000 allows us to recoup those costs and still have a little left to either complete some additional seeding activities that we're looking to do, or to take into account for the inconvenience of the projects being late. So again, this is the amount that both sides agreed to. We do have 2 projects, Phase 1A and 1B. And so we recommend allocating out that roughly $126,000 proportionally to those 2 projects based on the damages that were eligible, which ends up being $8,807.18 on 1A and $117,009.50 on 1B. I'll stand by for questions.
Questions or comments? This has been 3 years in coming and that, and so I'm glad to see that we have reached an agreement and we can move forward. Other questions, comments? All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve, assess liquidated damages in the amount of $120
Do I just say per staff
per
recommendation?
staff
Yep.
recommendation.
Staff recommendations in the packet,
In
in
the
the
packet.
memo, so I think that should be good tracking.
RD phase 1A and 1B.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you for closing that out.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks to Ryan too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's my
thank
team
you,
member.
Number 16, accept the transfer of property from the LEIC Beacon parcel, and it ends in 110. I'm not gonna read all the numbers.
That's fine. Yeah, this property does not have a mailing address, and the legal description is quite lengthy. It is found in the memo for clarity. So I decided to just put the Beacon parcel number on there to keep it short. So the Lake Area Improvement Corporation owns a piece of property adjacent to and west of the city's wastewater treatment plant. It's kind of shaped like an L, so we've locally been calling it the L-shaped property. This is a property that ironically was transferred to the LIC from the city a number of years ago. I think the intent was to foster development on it. Unfortunately, the South Dakota Department of Transportation won't permit another access off of the highway onto that property. And so without that direct access availability, the property doesn't have a lot of value for development reasons. However, for the city, as we look at our growing community and the proximity of our wastewater treatment plant, it does have a lot of value to us because someday, and we don't have any plans at this point, but someday we will need to expand that plant and there's no more space on the current property. And when you look at adjacent properties, this is the only one there. So it is valuable to us. And since it doesn't have immediate development opportunities, the LIC agreed to deed it over to the city. And so in the packet is a memo that outlines all of this, and I'll stand by for questions.
And it also has sewer lines that come through that property to the wastewater treatment plant and that from the industrial park. So for the city and that, it's valuable from that standpoint as well. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept transfer of property from LAIC Beacon parcel number 209-711-0652-17110.
Second.
Okay, thank you, sir, for reading all that. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 17, approve City Hall furniture proposal from Canfield Business Interiors. And again, Jameson, I'll ask you to address this one.
As we move forward with the construction on our new city administration building, one of the things that we need to make sure is done is that it's furnished with furniture and other materials inside. Generally, in a project, you plan for around 12%, give or take, of the construction cost, which puts us at about 1.2 million of furnishing, and we're very fortunate that this came in much lower than that. Canfield was able to submit a proposal of just under $604,000 to furnish the entire building. This is 23,000 square foot building, so there's a lot of space and it needs furnishing, and we were happy to see the bid come in where it did. So actually, I think I'll stand by there and stand by for any questions.
Questions or comments?
The plan for current furnitures in this building, furniture, I guess.
Yeah, once we get moved over, we do have quite a bit of furniture in this building. Some of it could be sold. Some of it has value to it. Some of it does not have value, and we would just need to toss. Some of the chairs in this room probably fit in the latter category. But we do hope to sell and surplus some of the materials from the building to make some money back.
We're gonna keep this operation, and do we get any?
There'll be a
The new one
new
will be
dais.
straight.
Yeah, it's curved, but it's straighter than this.
I got a quick question. Was there other entities that submitted proposals? Obviously, I'm happy with the price too, but just curious on that.
Yeah, so we worked with a subcontractor from RSA, who's our architect, and they sent out RFPs and they solicited proposals from a number of them. And this was the one that was, I think, most engaged and most capable of meeting the request. It was the only one that actually ended up submitting a proposal, but they did work with a number of others as well to make sure that a variety of firms were aware of this and had looked at this.
Other questions? Okay. If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve City Hall furniture proposal for Canfield Business Interiors in the amount of. $603,967.84.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
One quick side note, Jameson.
Yeah.
Move-in date is still on track.
Yep, the building is still on track for completion in end of November, and so we'll plan on moving in shortly after that, sometime in the month of December, most likely. The furnishing, they do state it takes 3 weeks to get things moved in and oriented and installed. But they're hoping to do a lot of that overlapping with the construction before the official construction date is complete.
It looks nice.
Mhm. Hey, number 18, award the bid for the water system improvement segment 4 to Metro Construction. Jameson, Nathan, Ryan.
In this case, I think I'll defer to Ryan. He had the bid opening. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah. We opened up bids for this project, on August 13th, so Tuesday of last week. We had a total of 10 bids received, which I think is a record for our project, so it was a very good thing. The bids ranged from a low bid of $776,988.74 to $1,268,852, so quite a wide variety there. The low responsible bid was submitted by Metro Construction from T. They've not done work in Madison before, but I'm very familiar with them. That amount again was $776,988.74. The engineer's estimate on this project was just a shade under $1 million. We've contracted Metro Construction and they're comfortable with their bid and recommend approval. Or recommend award, I should say.
So they have not done work in Madison.
No, they haven't done any work in Madison. They've done work for Lewis and Clark. They've done a lot of large jobs in Sioux Falls. They're definitely capable.
Nice to see that number of bid.
Yeah,
It is.
very good.
Very nice.
Segment 4 is where again?
This would be a water loop line. It's kind
Oh,
of
loop line.
on the industrial park.
Yeah.
Near where Infotech is, and then we bore under the highway, go past the concrete plant over to near the wastewater treatment plant. And then bore under the road again and tie in at the cul-de-sac at John Deere Circle.
And this is, what do we do my next summer?
So they could potentially do a little bit of work here this fall.
Okay.
There's really nothing that affects traffic or, you know, they don't have to put anybody out. And so they could work in the ditch and do some borings. I'm not sure if they'll elect to do that or not. They were given a year to do the work and, that kind of made this bid a little bit more, of something people wanted. And so I think that's part of the reason we got 10. So they've got some flexibility. They could do some this fall and finish next year or all next year.
Nathan, anything to add or? No?
Ryan's got under control like you do.
Sounds good. Anyone else, questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to award the bid, for water system improvement segment 4 to Metro Construction. For the, let's see, at the $776,988.74.
second,
Hey, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 19, authorize the mayor to sign change order number 2, Lakeview Industrial Park improvements with Bose Construction Incorporated. And Jameson, Ryan, do you want to address this one?
So this change order, is to, based on where the bids came in, the bids that came in quite low on this project, under the engineer's estimate. And so it provided a little bit of funding that they could then, do more of, Washington Avenue. So this change order would be removal and replacement of asphalt from 12th Street to 16th Street on Washington Avenue. So basically from Custom Touch Homes down to the highway. And then added a drainage culvert on 16th Street. The total increase of this change order would be $237,643.91. That, of course, is not city cost, that's cost for the project. I don't recall what the project percentages are. But this change order would request that additional amount be added to the contract and allow that surfacing to happen.
If my memory is correct, it's a 90-10 with the 10 being divided 5 and 5 between LAIC, the county and the city, something to that effect anyway.
Close, it's, so they divided the project into kind of county portion and the city portion.
Mhm.
And then they applied the grant funds, kind of equally to both, and then the LAIC split the remaining amount on each portion with each build entities.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think the original one came out to roughly those same percentages, but my understanding is that this was more for the county road, so the county's gonna be bearing more of the costs. The grants can be still bearing the bulk of it, 80%,
Right.
but then the engineering and the actual construction will be borne by LAIC and the county.
So it's a huge improvement.
It's still our project. Yeah, it's still our project.
Yeah, because we're carrying.
Yeah, we're carrying the grant, we've approved the project.
Mhm.
Nice, spend other people's money.
Other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign change order number 2, Lakeview Industrial Park Improvements Bose Construction in the amount of $237,643.91.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approved task order number 11 with the green substation improvements, amendment number 1. Jameson or Nathan, you want to?
Yeah, I'll have Nate come up. I'll introduce it while he's coming up. So we have 2 task orders in front of us. As a reminder, we have a standing agreement for engineering services with DGR. And when we have a project, we approve a task order. And then as we work through that project, we update that task order based on the cost for the next phase of engineering that we're looking at. So this first one is the green substation project. Nate, go ahead.
As Jameson said, this will kind of take us out of the pre-design phase and will take us through project completion. That task order number 11 is going to be pretty much a total of $6,600,032. That's the engineer estimate. Some of that's been paid. Some of it has not. Majority of it has not yet been paid. And then task order number 12. That's gonna be for the southeast substation. That'll be the conversion of the transformer and all the associated work with that. That's gonna be a total cost of about $4 million. So basically this amendment also takes that out of pre-design into final design through completion, project completion. So questions on that?
Now, if my memory is correct on that, some of this is being required because of changes in that through our distribution system from East River through, to bring us up to par.
The transmission system.
Yeah,
that's correct.
transmission system.
Yep.
This brings us up to what's currently going to be coming into Madison and puts us ready to receive that particular power.
Correct.
Other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve task order number 11, green substation improvements amendment number 1.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a delayed second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Right.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 21, approved task order number 12 for the southeast substation from 69 kV to 115 kV conversion amendment number 1.
We already covered it.
Covered that.
Yeah,
You did.
I boggled that. That's on me.
Nope, you're just fine. You're just fine.
I got a little overzealous.
Yeah.
I'll back it down.
So basically, this is bringing our system up so we can keep the lights on when our electricity is delivered to us, basically.
Make a motion to approve task order number 12, southeast substation 69 kV to 115 kV conversion amendment number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 22, approve the expenses to extend the electric system to service new customers. Jameson, Nathan, you want to address this one?
This will have 2 projects to it. We did not budget for them in this year's budget. There was too many unknowns for the projects to include it in the budget, so basically we're coming forth to ask permission to move forward with, project number 1 will be the Dollar General Service Extension to service those facilities for that. And then project number 2, the early learning center. We also got some work that's gonna occur at the same time if you approve this. That will be connected with next year's underground conversion project. So, since we have work there to do anyways, we figured now is the time to perform that work ahead of time, so we don't have to do it twice, so. Questions on either of those projects?
Questions or comments? I think on your part, that it's good planning. You know, to be ahead of the game. You know, since we now know what they're gonna be needing and what they're gonna be looking for, so. Any other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve expenses to extend electrical system to service new customers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thanks, Nate.
Yep, thanks, Nathan. Number 23, discussion on the use of storage containers for storage and as building material. Jameson, you want to address that?
Yeah, I'll kick us off here. So we have noticed that in a few other cities, they are starting to have discussions of their own and take action to regulate storage unit containers in the community. They can be used simply for storage, which is kind of where they started, but some residents or some folks are starting to build them into houses. This is seen around the country as well, not certainly just here. So other cities are starting to discuss this and take action, and we wanted to bring this forward to you to kind of provide some direction to staff and on if you want to regulate this, and then if so, how. And if that's the case, then staff can form a ordinance toward that direction to bring through the planning commission for review before we come back to you for approval. I guess the considerations here are one is, do you want to regulate them based on zoning district, if at all? I mean, I guess one, do you want to regulate them? 2, do you want to regulate them based on zoning district? Because some people might be fine with it in industrial or commercial zone, but not necessarily in a residential zone. And then 2, whether you want them to be allowed only for storage structures or to be used as building materials that can be connected together into a home or another structure. I'll note in the latter case that because it has become more prevalent around the country, there is building code that is aimed at that, so that we could adopt that to follow that to make sure it's done safely and in good practice. But not all cities are allowing that as a use. And then there was a staff idea in there in the recommendation in the memo that talks about regulating it based on the use of sheet metal siding in our current zones. But that was just one proposal put forward in case you were looking for an idea to get started. So with that, I'll sit back and take whatever direction you would like to go. Brian, anything to add?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
what size are these typically? 53 by 8? Ish?
20 to 40 to 53. You can get a short one, this 20 foot. You can get a 40 foot, you can get a 53 foot. And we do have some already in residential zones in town. You know, that people are using, so.
I look at it as this is a storage container or a storage shed, you know, anything over 10 by 12, we, you know, require a permit.
Yes,
Brian, do you want to go over like what, because I know we have some in town already. What does it take to have one in town?
You're right, so those that we have in town in the residential zones currently, I mean, they just got put there and we didn't know how to really address those. I mean, are they a structure, are they not? Are they allowed, are they not? You know, mentioning the storage buildings, yeah, if you have something larger than 120 square feet, it requires a building permit for that. We've struggled with how we would approve these if in that residential zone, it doesn't allow metal material on the sidewalks. So no matter what, we've had a difficult time of figuring out what to do with these. The commercial zones, you'll see them going north on Highway 81. Off to the left, those were put there, they were supposed to be temporary, until they could, you know, build back a storage unit, but those have lingered and they stayed there. I don't think there's necessarily an issue with them, but again, they're kind of, just in no man's land. I guess they're kind of up in the air. So we're just looking for that direction to determine what to do with those and how to regulate those if we want to at all.
I think yours is really good. Prevent placement of industrial shipping containers on residential properties, period. Don't even want them in town. Solve all of our problems. I'm not in favor of them at all. I haven't been since day one. I just feel like if I'm trying to sell my home and I have an eye-soaring shipping container in my neighbor's yard, I'm not in favor of that. I just don't feel like we should be aesthetically building houses out of shipping containers in town. I get it when we get into heavy manufacturing, when they're needing to store stuff as they're trying to build things. I could see Persona using them for, you know, things like that. I could totally get. Manitou, your manufacturing companies, I totally understand, but the rest of it, I don't find there's a need for it in town. Build a shed.
I would echo that. I don't think you want a bunch of these in the residential neighborhoods.
Yeah, I share that same sentiment. I don't want to see these in residential areas either. What about planning and zoning? Have they had discussions on this yet or no?
No, they've been curious about it and asking me when I might bring an ordinance to them to consider, but they haven't given any guidance. I had indicated that I was going to have this discussion first and then take the proposed ordinance to them.
Ryan, would it overburden you to just kind of see what some other towns have? Take those to planning and zoning and get their feedback?
Certainly, I can definitely do that.
You know, I mean, that might be a way to start, you know, see what other towns have already put into place and then.
Yeah.
You know, kind of get some feedback from our planning and zoning commission as to where their thoughts are and.
Yeah, I certainly could. And I debated doing that last month, but I thought if it got to this level and there was no support for it, that I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I agree. We can lean on other cities to figure out what templates we can pull from, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But I think starting here is really the key point because allowing in residential versus not allowing residential is points us in two very, very different directions. I've heard not allowing so far tonight. Any other thoughts? And let's just maybe start with the residential area. Yeah, and we can talk about the others.
I say no.
Yeah, I guess I would say, you know, let's keep it out of the residential area, because we're trying to, you know, get people to clean up their properties and have them look nice and, you know, and then, but, you know, our other zones, commercial zones, industrial zones and that, you know, maybe we wanna put something together, you know, on where they set them and maybe, you know, that if they are going to, you know, set some there, that they not be 40 shades of, you know, of gray and rust. You know, something on, you know,
Yeah,
um,
so on the residential side, I'm hearing no on permanent structures or uses. Is it also no on temporary uses if it's construction or?
I think if they're rental pods, like, you know, you get them when they bring in those rental pods,
mhm.
when people are moving, I can understand that.
Okay.
I think we have to allow some of that, but like if it's a permanent, you know, container, no.
Okay.
And I think the rental pod needs to be placed in their driveway.
Could we do a conditional use or how would we?
Yeah, you could do a conditional use, and that way the planning commission would be able to evaluate that particular structure and make sure, as Mayor Lindsay said, it's not rusty or an eyesore.
Is there a fee for that?
Yeah, there'd be $100 non-refundable fee.
I don't know about doing that for those pods that people use when they move, no?
Yeah, no, I would agree, you know, we could separate out that. you know.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, we need to define what temporary is. You know,
Yes.
and I look at it from the standpoint, from your question, my, thought process went immediately to Cyber Estates. I don't know that they have one up there, but you know, there, as long as construction is continuing on things and they're using it to store equipment or something like that to keep it from getting stolen, but as soon as it becomes, you know, not part of a project, then, you know, then I have an issue with it.
Right, you think you can put together some thoughts on how to classify what's temporary
Yeah.
versus permanent? Okay.
Yeah.
So then if we move to industrial, I'm gonna go to the opposite end of the spectrum, I think that's easiest. What are your thoughts on uses in industrial zones?
Heavy manufacturing.
Okay,
What are they all? Heavy and commercial?
yeah, industrial, you'd probably have the heavy manufacturing, light manufacturing. Would anything else fall in industrial category? Is agriculture
Yeah.
industrial?
Define light manufacturing. What is what would fall in light manufacturing, Ryan?
Light manufacturing, as far as principal permitted uses, is kind of like warehouses, small industrial operations. It's your more non-hazardous things, so it can be storage of materials or manufacturing materials. There's typically not a lot of, you know, steam or anything that goes with those, nor is there smell. So that's kind of how that differentiates from the heavy manufacturing.
Now, we have a manufacturing company that's basically south on Egan and just slightly west on Fourth, and is that considered light manufacturing? Because I believe there's a container sitting there to the north.
That one is light, yes.
Okay, so in that case there, and that I don't know what's stored in it, but, you know, there is one sitting there that I'm aware of.
In that case, it's more permanent, correct?
Yeah.
So that one's been a
Right.
while.
You know, that, to me, that'd be permitted or conditional. I mean,
Mhm.
one-time application goes through the board approved. What if it has wheels?
I think if you were to allow these, you'd want to make sure that they were affixed to the ground in some way where they weren't going to move.
Are you talking permanent structures, industrial parks or industrial areas, zones, or even if it's a temporary storage use? I don't know how easy it is to.
Yeah, I think if it's a temporary use or something, if they build a whole
Job.
material and they have wheels or something, that's probably not something we'll even regulate, except for we may issue you know, we can certainly issue a permit and call that a temporary structure and give it X amount of days before it needs to be then moved again. That's certainly an avenue, and in that case, wheels are probably fine. If we're gonna have those that are intended on staying there, I think we have to make sure they're affixed to the ground by some way.
Would building code dictate some of that?
It would, yeah.
So we could adopt the building code, maybe we already have for this particular area. It still regulates saying not allowed in this zone, they're allowed in this zone per building code.
And on South Egan, we do have a semi trailer that's been parked for years.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't clear on the light manufacturing, how the commission felt. I with that,
So I think Dre's conditional use piece is good.
okay. Would you see conditional use piece for both manufacturing zones?
I think if you're gonna do it for one, you gotta do it for both.
Okay, yeah.
Is it
Okay,
worth considering, like, in the heavy manufacturing, no hazard materials be contained in them?
Again,
Is that-
building code would dictate that,
Okay.
yeah. It wouldn't be safe for storage. So.
Good point.
where does the agriculture zone fall in relation to some of this, do you think, Brian? Kind of a thing?
You know, most of our ag zones, they're actually, they're more of a residential use than they are an industrial or commercial use, so. Granted, they're large lots and they probably are easily,
So based on what we're hearing, maybe the ag zone would be more just not allowed? If it's more of a residential use?
they're adjacent to ag or to residential uses, they'd be more visible.
They would need it anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't think for permanent structures generally, so.
Yeah, I don't know that would be an issue anyway.
So that leaves commercial, that will say commercial in general, what's the feeling from the group?
Or commercial, you've got basically down Egan Avenue, right?
Yeah, and then along Highway 34,
Yeah.
along down Northland, Washington, and on Second Street.
So no,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the custom touch houses that sit there, for a while.
Yeah,
Are we gonna affect?
No, not if we call it storage containers.
yeah, and this is.
I don't know that they have any storage containers on there.
No, just the structures that sit there,
Yeah, but those are more
because.
mobile homes that
because
are
it's not
temporary.
Steel siding or
Yeah.
Yeah,
what they would, okay, I just didn't wanna get
no, good
caught
question.
there.
Yeah, good question.
I've heard a couple no's in the commercial. Any alternate thoughts, Dre, or?
Just trying to picture where it all, yeah.
Yeah,
Again, it's right.
yeah, we should have brought his own
Only
emails.
residential.
and, which would really be nicer.
That'd be too convenient.
I think it is.
Is it really?
Stage it.
Brian Hager, everybody, ask for zoning map, he'll make it appear.
Our light manufacturing could be on the industrial park along. This would be where salvage yard is and storage units up through Manitou. These
Good picture time.
zones
right?
here would be your heavy manufacturing zones. Blues are gonna follow your commercial zones. And then your yellows, your tans and those are gonna be your residential. Our ag district is over here and over here.
Yeah, so we're
And you're
to the
obviously-
residential.
I'd say A, probably not, yeah.
Say, the commercial, because you're sitting right in residential stuff.
So if we boil it all down, please tell me if you feel differently, but I'm hearing conditional use in any industrial zone, not permitted in any commercial, residential or any zone.
Yes.
Kelly, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think it's a great starting point. And that would be great, to have the planning commission, go through it and review it and, get their feedback too.
The
Yeah.
pods, we need to make sure we address that.
Mhm.
Yeah, temporary uses in residential.
Define that.
Still be
Define
allowed.
temporary,
Yeah.
30 days, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's where maybe we can look at other cities or online somewhere, if it's based on number of days or active project definition, that's something we can bring ideas to.
Yeah.
What's the length of time from the time you buy a house, do you close out on it roughly?
30 to 45 days.
So I think
Or
it'd be basic.
45 would be
I would
safe.
say.
And then that one that is on South Egan is not a storage container as we picture the way besides it is a semi-trailer.
Yeah, I guess I can't speak towards, I don't know which one you're referring to, but
Yeah.
I think we've got good
Good
guidance
start.
here. Again, this is the direction that we needed, and I think that Ryan can put together a template and a draft, bring it to the planning commission for review and bring it back to you guys, and we'll have something in probably a month or two, I imagine.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. And then number 24, August finance updates. Thanks, Ryan.
Cole Thibar just transferred from utility billing to AP specialist, so we have one more shift in the finance office. This update covers through July 58.2% of the year. This is a cash on hand. We're at 18 point, I guess I'm gonna back up. I threw in the second place decimal in this because I think it's important as we're going through our reserves, just give you guys a more dialed in picture. General cash 18.18, investments at 13.74, checking at 3.12, money market at 1.04, and other at 279, and restricted cash at 616. So revenue guidelines for July. Expenditures. I will note here that I did find when I dove into the budget for 2025 that there are 2 errors in the 603 and 604 fund, what in our system versus what is published. So we will be making changes to the one. They're not significant. One is $2,525 higher in the 603 and 2,000 higher in the 604. So I will be making those shortly. Sales tax, we did see a decrease of 15.91% for July. I think Jameson said it best, there's no way to indicate where that comes from.
Yeah, I'll refer back to the April, we had 50% higher and we just don't know. So sometimes we have some volatile changes and we aren't sure where they are. It could be audits on companies' sales tax numbers, it could be events, whatever the case is, we're not sure. We are still 10% up for the year, so that's good news.
It shows that decline. This slide is new this time. I wanted to talk about impact because we are spending through our reserves. Currently, since May, we have transferred 10 million out of our South Dakota FIT. That reduces our returns and it decreases our overall returns due to reduced investment capital. I feel that we're at a critical point. We need urgent need to manage spending and optimize investment strategies. We are currently sitting at our 6-month threshold, which is time for us to really acknowledge. We have spent $6.3 million on the new city admin building to date. Given the balance that we have coming through on that, it would be my recommendation to seek a loan to continue that project. This is the reserve fund summary because I wanted you guys to have a clear picture of that, of what we spent through the year. Any questions?
Yeah, going back to the recommendation and that of a loan for the completion of the city admin building. Have we looked into any, what may be available and what kind of interest rates we've been looking at?
I have not looked yet. We sat down with Jameson, I think it was about a week ago, had the conversation that it's something I thought we should consider at this time. Just because we are spending reserve funds and pulling those out of our investments and we need those investments to be working for us.
And speaking of the 6-month threshold that Amy mentioned, we don't have a reserve policy that I can find currently. So that's one of the many things that Amy's working on is trying to draft together a reserve policy for us. In general, cities usually look at like a 3 to 6 month reserve policy. And I think with the number of projects we've got going on, sticking close to that 6-month reserve is smart because we have a lot of changes going on each year. Hopefully, as this construction season concludes and we get the final reimbursements back and the payments made out to the contractors, we'll have a clear look at where we're sitting. We certainly are able to still make all of our payments and there's no no issues with that. We want to make sure that we still maintain a adequate cushion in case of emergency in the future.
It's not a panic, it's a strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And I guess I would like to see that you, if you, to look into that and see what's available, what's interest rates and.
Absolutely.
And that, you know, because, we have been doing a lot of projects and that for the benefit of our citizens. But we also, you know, need to be mindful that we are spending their money and we need to do it wisely.
Correct.
So I commend you for bringing that forward.
I think it's, you know, we've had some heavy weeks on when I put this together, the second weekend in August. The checks for that week were $2.7 million. So
Right,
when you have weeks like that, it makes you take a look, and we do have tons of projects going on. We will get funding back in FEMA, and there's several other projects that will wrap up, and we'll see things transition a little bit, but we need to be cautious.
and I too was looking at those numbers as I was signing them,
Yeah,
so. But yeah, you know, if you wouldn't mind, you know, I guess I would appreciate seeing what's available,
Sure.
what the possibilities are. And so. Other questions or comments?
Thank you again for that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, do we have any public comment?
no,
No public comment. Under announcements and that, I do want to make the announcements and that the tree and grass dump are again open. And that, we've made some updates out there and we hope the people treat it, you know, with respect. Because it isn't our decision if it gets contaminated to the point where the state says you're not doing the job that you're supposed to do and you need to close it. So, you know, it's what I would say, it's a privilege that we have it. And we'd like to maintain that privilege, but in doing so, we need to make sure that we follow the rules and regulations for the state of South Dakota. Under announcements, our next regular meeting will be September 3rd, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Anyone else have any comments or announcements? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.